Hi, I'm Dr. Denise Smith, and my practice is called the Center for Vision Development. We have a specialized interest in helping patients of all ages, but especially children, develop their visual skills to enable them to be successful academically and just to reach their full potential in their life. Today, we were just talking a little bit about preschool children and vision development. Most people don't really think about that at those ages, but it is a critical time for vision development, and so is very near and dear to my heart. For many, many years, I have felt that if we could get these kids in early on in the preschool years, we could make some profound changes in a positive way regarding their visual development to set them up for success early on so that they possibly would never develop visual disorders that would need vision therapy later. So just really taking that proactive approach. I like to live by what I preach, and personally, I enrolled my son into a vision therapy program when he was 3 years old. I have seen firsthand how that has enabled him to develop his vision and be successful later on in his academic career and just in his life in general. And so would like to just share that with other parents so that possibly their children could circumvent the need for a formal vision therapy program like many of the children that we see. It's so important for children to have vision evaluations early on. Most people, again, don't think about having their child's vision assessed when they're babies or toddlers because they think that the child won't be able to respond. They're equating vision exams to their experiences where the doctor is asking, which is better, 1 or 2, or having them read the eye chart. And they probably think, my child is too young to do any of that. But that's absolutely not the case. So when we are evaluating the vision in young children or in babies, we have other methodologies that we use to be able to obtain a lot of information. And the reason this is so important is because we are not born with fully developed vision. When babies are born, they're not able to see clearly. Their eyes are not able to track targets. We don't have depth perception. And so all of these skills are learned, and they are actually learned and developed through the motor system. And so during those preschool years between the ages of 2 and 5, they're really fine-tuning a lot of those visual skills. And so it's important for us to be able to see where they are in that visual development. Are those skills developing at the appropriate ages? Or are they missing some of those visual milestones that should be happening? And by identifying the current status of their vision, we can identify areas that are delayed and address them early on. It's all about being proactive. So I'm always telling the parents, it's so much easier to be proactive than reactive. We want to catch these things early on and address them so that down the road, they're not struggling academically. And we know and are confident they have the visual skills they need when they're starting a formal schooling process, and just to be able to reach their full potential. So it's all just about that early identification, getting the skills developed appropriately. If they need glasses, we address that too, but it goes beyond that. We're addressing more than just the need for glasses. And again, just setting them up for success. Some common things that we see early on in children who could benefit from vision therapy include things like excessive blinking, if they're rubbing their eyes a lot, if they're saying that their eyes are hurting, or maybe they're getting headaches often. Sometimes we notice things like they're just clumsy. They're always bumping into things. Maybe they avoid certain activities, like they don't like to climb. They're afraid of climbing. They are knocking things over often. I can say from personal experience, when my niece was in that age range, she was constantly knocking over her glass of milk on the dinner table. And one day my sister-in-law just said, Grace is always knocking over her glass, like every day. Could that be visually related? And I said, absolutely, if she doesn't have good depth perception. And so we were able to identify that. Sometimes the child will close one eye or cover one eye. They might be extra light sensitive, just every time they're in bright lights or they go outside, they're squinting, or they're just extra sensitive to bright lighting. They might be squinting. Maybe they have difficulty remembering shapes, like learning shapes and colors. Despite repeated introduction, they're just not remembering or recognizing the shapes or colors, or learning the alphabet and numbers. They have a difficult time with that. Those can be attributed to visual memory or visual processing delays. Maybe they're acting out, when it's time to sit down and look at books or sit down to color. They start engaging in disruptive behaviors. They want to avoid those types of activities. Or maybe you're just noticing that they're kind of behind their peers in regard to, letter recognition or coloring, things like that.
I'm Silence Smith. I am the Waco Vision Therapist. I have been a vision therapist for almost 6 years now. What I enjoy most about working with preschoolers are the funny things that they say. They will make you laugh every single time they're in your office. They say the most off-the-wall things. They will tell you the most random facts that they have learned, and I think it's just joy in general. So initially, whenever I have any new patients coming in, especially children, I make sure to address them and introduce myself, and make sure that I am communicating with the child just as much as I am the parent. So I'm not ever speaking through the parent to the child. Any questions that I have, I try to direct toward the child to involve them and make them more comfortable as soon as they come in. The way that our therapy is structured in my office is I actually have a giant window that sees into the waiting room. So any parents can kind of look in and see what we're doing, and we're just an earshot away too, so they can hear everything that's going on. We do lots of very fun activities. I get on the floor a lot, and we have a lot of fun in here, and then we go back out and meet with mom or dad and go over like home program activities. Everybody does exercises that they learn in here at home.
Prior to enrolling in the vision therapy program, the child would undergo a comprehensive vision evaluation to assess all of the areas for the functional vision. So this would include your basic things that you think of with an eye exam, like the acuity, 20/20. We also look at the refractive status, which is the part that relates to glasses. We evaluate the eye health to make sure there are no health issues contributing to any vision development delays. And then we look at the functional vision skills. So these are going to be things like visual tracking, visual focusing, eye teaming, depth perception, peripheral vision, the visual processing skills, which are things like visual memory, visual discrimination, visual spatial relationships. And then we assess some motor skills, some gross motor skills, fine motor skills, eye-hand coordination, as well as the primitive reflexes. Once we get all of that information, we can identify the areas that are developing properly and then the ones that have delays. And then we create a customized therapy program to target those specific areas for that child. And then we turn them over to Silence so that she can work the magic in developing the skills that need attention.
If I am seeing a preschooler who maybe has some gross motor deficits in their visual skills, we might start with some fun activities with marbles. So to help with their tracking, being able to follow a target with their eyes. One of my favorite things is they sit across the room and they have a cup, and I will roll marbles to them and they have to follow the marbles, catch them in their cup, transfer them to the other cup. I think that is a fan favorite in my office right now. We also might do something with a pen light. I have a pen light with a funny monster head on top. Have them watch it, being able to track it from side to side, up and down in all gazes, even be able to hold their fixation or just look at the target for a few seconds at a time could be a big deal for some of my patients. And how we can get the parents involved in these activities is I try to see what my kiddos are receptive to in office. So if we really like the marble game, do we have marbles at home? Can we recreate this? Do you want to bring mom or dad in, show them what we've been doing in here so that you guys can recreate this at home?
As far as the frequency of visual examinations for these younger children, the first visual exam should actually be conducted at about age 6 to 9 months of age. So it really starts in infancy. And then if everything is looking okay at that first visit, then the next evaluation is recommended at around age 3. And that's where we get into those preschool years. So we really want to see whenever they're entering into that period, what are the skills looking like? Between the ages of 2 and 5, that is the most common time that we see an eye turn develop. So a lot of people will call that a lazy eye, where one eye is actually misaligned, turning inward or maybe outward. So between the ages of 2 and 5 is when we see that happening most often. So to have that exam at age 3, we kind of see how stable the system is. And then if everything looks good at that visit, the next evaluation would be at age 5. I recommend prior to starting kindergarten. So basically at 6 to 9 months of age, then at 3 years of age, and then again at 5 years of age prior to starting kindergarten. And the exams that are done in my office at ages 3 and 5, those go well beyond like a basic eye exam that most people are thinking about. These are the evaluations where we're really getting a handle on those foundations with not only eye health and refractive conditions like nearsighted, farsightedness, but also the tracking, the eye tuning, the focusing, the visual processing, visual memory, the left and right concepts, the eye-hand coordination, the gross motor control, because those are all the things that should be developed to a pretty good level before the child starts a formal academic program like kindergarten. In no way are the skills fully developed by kindergarten, but they need some solid foundations there. And so if we don't have those solid foundations, then later on, it can present with bigger challenges because the visual demands will only continue to increase as the child gets older. So if you think about what the child is doing in kindergarten, they're likely learning, to cut and paste, and they're coloring. Maybe they already know numbers and letters. If not, they're learning those, reinforcing those. But then in first grade, they're expected to know how to read. Sometimes even in kindergarten, they're expected to know how to read. So if the child has a visual focusing delay, then it could be blurry. It could be fluctuating in vision. If they have poor eye teaming, they might be having double vision. If they have poor eye-hand coordination, they may not be able to hold the pencil properly or write the letters. And so if these things aren't identified, the child may have some learning disabilities diagnosed or misdiagnosed rather. They could be misdiagnosed as having some attention deficit delays. They might be misdiagnosed as dyslexia. And it's all because the visual foundations aren't there that the child needs. And then you get into second grade, third grade, fourth grade, the text or the font of print gets smaller. So that's a higher level. It's more reading, and they can just continue to fall further and further behind because the foundations weren't there in the first place. I'd probably say the most common condition that we treat in that preschool population is going to be strabismus, which is the medical term for an eye turn, an eye that's misaligned turning in or out. I think the reason for that is because it's cosmetically visible. You can see it. The parent or the grandparent notices that the eye is turned. They're not looking in the same place. And that creates, it's alarming. And so they, bring them in for the vision evaluation. Whereas some of the other vision development delays that we've been talking about that are more subtle, they aren't visible to other people. You can't see if a child is not focusing. You can't really tell if they're not tracking properly. You may not know if they're having double vision, or you don't know if they have a visual processing delay because you can't see it. And the child isn't saying it. The child doesn't know how to say, hey, Mom, I know you've shown me these shapes a bunch of times, but I just can't remember them. Or they don't say, yeah, whenever I look at that, I see two of them when there should just be one. So I think that's probably why that's the most common condition we see. The other things that we see with the preschoolers coming in typically have to do with or depth perception and or motor coordination. The parents are just saying they're bumping into things all the time and they're getting hurt and they're falling down when they're playing their little sports, even in the, the lower levels. They're just all over the place. They can't kick the soccer ball like the other kids. And we don't know why. Or they may have been referred by another healthcare professional. So we get a lot of referrals from occupational therapy for these kids who have sensory integration dysfunction, or the OT has identified that the vision just isn't where it's supposed to be. And it, in fact, could be hindering their progress in their other therapy program.
I think one of the big things is bilateral integration. Being able to use both sides of their body independently is one of the major things that we hit on in the preschool age kiddos that come into vision therapy. Say your body is like a tripod and your eyes are at the very top. If one of those legs are unsteady and not working together, then your eyes are going to be a little unsteady.
You have a great point there on that. And that's kind of relating back to what the OTs are seeing and why they're referring. Pretty much if a child is doing occupational therapy, there is a very high probability that they need vision therapy also, because the vision develops through the motor. The OTs are working more on those tripods, that analogy with the tripod, the gross motor. They do work on some fine motor, and they can tap in a little bit on the vision, but it's limited. And so if the child is having delays in those skills that the OTs are working on, you're pretty much going to see delays in the vision development as well.
Of course, we see changes. I think it varies from each person, but I would say typically within the first month or two, we're going to start seeing a little things here and there, especially just in our vision therapy sessions. We'll notice gradually this is getting a lot easier, or we're even becoming less avoidant of things. I think is a big part of the preschool age group, because they don't communicate as effectively as the older kids or adults do. So it's in the form of avoidance things whenever things are hard. So we start seeing them avoid maybe their homework exercises less. And just in one of my preschoolers that I have right now, I want to say that the balance has gotten a lot better from doing vision therapy. So now we can actually stand on one leg without falling over. And that took just a couple months of working towards it. But it's small things like that here and there that all piece together.
The parents are giving more feedback on the improvements they're seeing than maybe we even see. So for me, I think the parents are seeing the improvements much faster than we even see them in the sessions, because they're with them, all day, every day, and they're seeing how it translates. So we might be looking at their tracking or their bilateral integration. The parents aren't looking at that. They're looking at, my child sat there and looked at a book for 30 minutes and they've never done that before. Or my child hasn't gotten an injury in 2 weeks and that wasn't the case before. Or my child isn't acting out behaviorally. They're not, disruptive, and they're happier, they're calmer, because we do see a lot of behavioral challenges in those younger patient populations. And so a lot of times it's just the behavior has improved dramatically. And that's what we're hearing from the parents. Whereas we're looking at, can their eyes stay on the target for 20 seconds and can they track it, kind of thing. Fortunately, for me and the Center for Vision Development, my team is amazing. I truly have the most wonderful, good-hearted people working here. And all of the vision therapists truly have a heart of gold. The vision therapist does matter. I think the experience is vital, and also just where their passion lies. So as I mentioned, all my vision therapists are great, but they're also people. And as humans, we all have things that we love more than other things. Even though we work really hard and can do all of those things, some of us just like these conditions or these patients or these populations better than others. And so we try to match up the people with the therapists who have a passion for that age group. We have a therapist who loves the elderly population. She just loves working with seniors. We have those who love the pediatrics, and specifically like for Silence, she's got 2 little ones at home, that she has that experience not only as a vision therapist, but also as a mother. And those are 2 different perspectives, but they are so complementary. And not that the other vision therapists who don't have, toddlers and preschoolers at home can't manage these patients. They can and they do. But, Silence just brings that extra component to it. I can say personally, I love the preschool age population. I always have, even before I was a mother. I just love those kids. And if anybody would ever ask me what my favorite age of kid was, it was age 4. I just love those kids. I love that age. I love where they are developmentally. So the vision therapist is important because the child is interacting with him or her one-on-one, once, twice, maybe 3 times a week sometimes, for a period of months or even years, depending on the types of visual challenges they have. And so it's a very personal relationship. And so we want to ensure that they're connecting with that person because it does affect the productivity and the customization and the just to make the child comfortable in that setting, because we're asking them to do things that are hard. We try to make it as fun as possible, but at the end of the day, they are working on things that need attention and that are hard for them. iTwinkle is actually a new offering from the Center for Vision Development. This has been a program that I have desired to do for many, many years and is finally coming to fruition. What iTwinkle is, it's basically a preschool vision development class. So it's a series of classes designed for children between the ages of 3 and 5 years old. It's designed to promote vision development at an age-appropriate level. So we're going to be working on the skills that should be developing during those age frames. It will be groups, small groups of children, like 5 to 6 children with a parent or a caregiver. We'll be singing songs about eyes and vision. We'll be engaging in activities that are age appropriate, that will enhance and develop the skills that are necessary at that age. The benefit for a child coming to the iTwinkle class is just to ensure that those visual foundations are developing when they are supposed to be developing. And that way they can continue to build on those skills, which will then set them up for success, especially in school, when they're entering school, kindergarten. And then also just to equip them with the skills they need as those visual demands increase. So every year as they get older, their visual demands are going to increase. And this is all about just establishing solid visual foundations for that.
Examples of activities that we would do in iTwinkle would be placing cards, being able to strengthening, learning those fine motor skills that should be developing at that age. We'll also be doing some visualization, so being able to picture things in our head, a fun what's in the box game. We will be showing these exercises to the parents so that they can be involved as well. And some exercises also require the parent to be present to do them with them. So most exercises that we'll be doing will require a partner. So they'll be hands-on the entire time.
So with the iTwinkle visual development classes, our primary goal is to establish strong visual foundations to set the child up for success. So we know that 80% of what we learn is through vision. Vision, critical skill for learning. And a lot of people, I would venture to say most parents, are not thinking about that. So when you're looking at other preschool development programs, I know when my child was a toddler, we did some music classes, we did swimming lessons, we did some gymnastics classes, and all of those were very relevant because of the motor coordination with the swimming and the gymnastics, the music, very important as well. So not to take away from any of those, but then there's the vision part that has just as, there's the vision part that is just as if not more important, with relation to the child's ability to learn, to read, things like that. And so the way that this stands out is we are focusing purely on the skills needed for vision. Now, all of the activities we do are not necessarily just for the eyes, because the vision development encompasses more than just the eyes. We're working on primitive reflexes. We're working on gross motor coordination, eye-hand coordination, and then also the visual tracking, the focusing, the eye teaming. And so it's a little more comprehensive than just say, a gymnastics is just working on the motor skills, the balance. We're taking that and then adding to it at a higher level. Silence just emailed me yesterday about an opportunity at the library. I haven't looked into it, but just so you kind of know what our trajectory is on this, we're looking at trying to maybe get into the library and one of their programs to just launch a class there for free, and be able to start educating people on that. So I think it'll be great, if we do that and then have materials and they can go to our website and then they see the videos of us talking about these classes. I think it'll be very good.